What is up, Pod Nation? Welcome to Podioslave the Gathering, just like Magic the Gathering, or... These guys wanted me to throw a joke out there, so I thought I'd throw that out there since we're all nerds. So welcome to the Podioslave podcast / Podioslave the Gathering. Hope you brought your cards to the table. It's episode...
We're keeping all this. Let it roll.
Oh, this is amazing. I love this.
Episode 80 as I adjust my spectacles. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm good, man.
After that, I'm doing amazing.
I got the punchline in. Sweet. That was the whole goal of the episode, or at least the beginning.
I'm trying so hard not to laugh while you're doing that. And I'm like, no, you know what? It's funny. Just laugh at it. Let everybody know.
It's either going to be that or the Podioslave Gambit. A bunch of lined up, but yeah, Podioslave the Gathering.
Save them for another time. This will happen again, guys. I'll burst out laughing right at the intro because Nate's got a great line for us.
Yep. Here to nerd out with you guys, and as always, here to talk about music as we do. So, super stoked to hang out with you guys as always. It's the best day of the week, mainly for us, and a selfish reason. It's definitely very selfish to say that it's the best day of the week to hang out with you guys. But what have you guys been up to lately?
Well, there's nothing selfish about it. If it is the best, it's the best. And here we are. I'm doing good. We've been promoting the Damien episode from last week, which has been a lot of fun. Some great responses, great feedback from that episode. So Damien, if you're decide to still stick around and listen to us, then we appreciate it. We had a blast. And like we said last week, answers to questions that I've been so curious about over the last 20 years, and to hear it from the source is it's kind of why we do this. I mean, it's, we're not picking random guests. These are guests that we want to talk to, and that was so much fun.
Totally. And there is a part 2 of that conversation that will be dropping in the before the year is out. I'm not sure when yet. We've got some stuff lined up that we want to get done first, but there was a really good second half of that conversation that kind of it was nerdery. It was what we do. The three of us, we just had Damien there too to talk about music and stuff he was digging and stuff we were digging, and similar to what we did with Phil from Taproot a couple weeks back. So if you dug that one, you dug the conversation that we had with Damien, it's there's another part. It'll be out there again in the ether soon enough.
I love that it's not on me anymore. It's like the guests are actually making this a 2-part episode, dragging it on. So thank you guys, both Damien and Phil. Yeah.
Chatting with Damien made me wish I had a chance to see them. I've never seen them. I know they're supposed to play Furnace Fest. They had to back out from that, but it gave me the itch to hear some live music. Nate, you saw some live music last night, right?
I did. I got to see Dallas Green, also known as City in Color, played down here in San Diego. And, we've only been to a few shows since things are kind of lifting up a little bit to be able to even go to shows. So picking and choosing ones that I actually want to go to, but ones that are fitting to my schedule and so forth. So yeah, he came through last night and it was absolutely amazing as usual. Him solo, he had a little sidekick that helped him on a few songs, but for the most part he was solo. And man, I don't know if anyone's listening that hasn't seen him, definitely catch him on this tour. He, in between songs, had a little bit of banter on what he was doing during lockdown and just really poured his heart out in terms of, I've been wanting to do this for so long. It's been a long time coming. And he sounded tight. I mean, he definitely, he's already a perfectionist, but he was just on top of his game. It's one of the best shows I've seen in a very long time, in a venue that I've never been to, called the Balboa Theater, and a legendary venue built in 1924. So we're all, nerds in that aspect too, to just check out old venues. So it's a San Diego National Landmark. So super cool.
Is it in the Balboa Park?
Not in Balboa Park, but yeah, it's downtown San Diego.
And keep an eye on our socials the next couple of days, or actually probably dropped by now. Go back and check our socials. Nate probably has put together a little video of some of the show the other night. So listening to you talk, Nate, about your calendar and putting shows in. I've known Nate now for, the better part of 2 decades plus here. And Nate will put on his iPhone calendar, every show that's going to be anywhere near him that he might be able to get to, whether it be a 4-hour drive or a 15-minute drive. And when you're going to try to schedule the podcast around that, it becomes interesting and fun. And it's like, I might go see this though. Yeah. Okay. So can we record that night? And it's like, yeah, no, I guess I won't go to that one, but I might still. Like, all right, we'll record early so you can do both. So nerdery never sleeps, ladies and gentlemen. That's really the punchline there.
Yeah, like what are the odds of you actually going to that show? Because if it's less than 50%, then we're recording.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's always less than 50%, to be honest. I mean, we're all getting pretty old, so shows are not priority like they were in my 20s, but they are, like you said, Tone, they're always in my calendar. It's nice to just look at and be like, nice, they're coming through. Sweet. Will I check it out? Probably not, but it'd be nice to check out. But every once in a while, I'll make some things happen. And even this show, like, my wife didn't know, and I surprised her. I'm like, hey, surprise date night. She was like, oh, okay. So
you said he played for what, 2.5 hours?
Yeah, 2.5 hours, super long show. There was an opener too, an intermission, classic intermission style too. It's like an old theater, so they have the whole like sound in the hallways and stuff like that. But yeah, he just kept going. It ended at he went on at 9 p.m. first of all, which is pretty late start, and then stopped at 11:30. So
wow.
Sweet, heard everything I wanted to hear for the most part.
Well, he's coming through Portland, Maine in about a month. When this drops, like 3 weeks from now, and I have tickets, so I'm excited to finally see City in Color. I've never seen them.
Nice. They, whoever you want to look at it, they at this point, although he's solo now, it sounds like live, probably have 6 albums by now, which is nuts.
Yep.
They've been around long enough where they have a massive catalog to pull from. So yeah, you probably got a little bit of everything. Do they play stuff off Bring Me Your Love and?
Yep. Yeah, I kind of spread out through all the albums. I don't have like the whole graph in front of me for like setlistfm.com type thing, but yeah, good spread of songs. And I recorded a ton of them. I hate to be that guy recording the songs, but for me, it's like at this point, it's like a little memento. You don't get the ticket stub anymore. You can get merch, which I did want to pick up some merch last night, although I didn't. And so I take videos now. Sometimes I'll just take a full song just so I have it in my kind of archives forever. So I did that a few times. Not to be that guy.
You can get ticket stubs. They just charge you now, which is so backwards. I mean, growing up the way we grew up, where you'd get the stub and it was just yours. It was baked into the cost or whatever. Yeah. Now you got to pay $3 to have them mail you a stub, which as a nerd I've done. I mean, I had stuff come in the mail the other day. I think my Clutch tickets came in the mail the other day. So
sweet.
It's you need a little memento of the show, and I struggle with the recording of it too, because I think I told the story of trying to record fireworks at Mumford and Sons when we going back to our episode 52 guest Lauren Wayne on the Eastern Prom in Portland, Maine, about 10 years back, and I didn't record anything. So I'm just staring at the sky into my phone and nothing recorded. So yeah, it's like, just watch the show, enjoy yourself. That's the person on my right shoulder. The one on my left's like, record something and save it so you can have it forever.
Do they charge for the ticket and then the shipping of the ticket?
It's probably all the same. It's like $3 extra to get it shipped to you. I'm like, well,
okay.
I'm a nerd. I'm in.
Less of a pill to swallow. I should have been doing that the whole time, because I would say the last few years I haven't gotten the printout. It's just digital. And what's foolish is in the Ticketmaster app, there's no history.
Right.
Yeah.
They should have history.
Yep.
That would be a digital ticket stub.
Yep.
Missing opportunity. Talk to us. We'll figure it out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Come on, Ticketmaster. That'd be great. Literally all the shows I don't have stubs to that I used to search the dirty, dingy floors for and still not find one.
Or find like a $10 bill.
Yeah. Bonus.
All right. So talk about a segue here. We're going from talking to Damien of As Friends Russ into talking about City in Color. And now we're going to talk about 2Pac. We had Damien last week, who did give us a little 90s R&B flavor. So we were thinking about it, and some stuff come up this week. I think it's the 25th anniversary of 2Pac's death, and it's the 25th anniversary earlier this year, of All Eyez On Me, which is a record we all ride for. So we thought, let's talk about it. We haven't talked a ton of hip hop, and it's not because we don't love it. We're all into it, but this is the type of range you're going to get from us. We're going to go from, melodic hardcore to 90s R&B right into 90s gangster rap, and that's just what we do. It's our flavor. It depends on the week. You never know what you're going to get.
And I'd say it's the genre that we listen to, not the most overall, but out of the genres we don't talk about or we haven't talked about much, it's the genre we probably listen to the most. I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself. It's a disproportionate amount that I actually listen to that we don't talk about, if that makes any sense. So I think we're due for this. I mean, have we done any hip hop yet?
Bits and pieces.
Pieces.
Way back in our What If episode, we did a little Biggie and Snoop and Dre, and yeah, but not a ton.
Yeah, we've talked about Nas and different hip hop artists, with never like a full on dedicated episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So this we're due for this, and he's the perfect. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but I would say collectively he's probably one of the first 3 rappers we got into, maybe first 5.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All Eyez on Me dropped February of 1995, so 1996. Excuse me, 25 years ago, earlier this year, which is wild to me. I remember. I guess let's get into like our first impressions, our first like, remembrances of this album. Maybe that's probably a good place to start, right, guys?
Yeah.
So for me, just not having cable at that time, I think I was like 11 or 12, and going to my grandmother's house to watch MTV, and there being like we're going to have this big reveal of this new 2Pac video for this new 2Pac record right around the end of 1995 into 1996. And it was California Love with Dre, that like Mad Max video that's like 12 minutes long, and it's just fucking awesome. And I mean, when you're 12 and you're like, this song's awesome, this video's awesome, I don't have MTV and I get to like watch this. I was stunned, stoked, the whole 9 yards as a budding music fan, and it just has always stuck with me. I mean, that's a song that if it comes on at a party, I can rap pretty much the entire thing, which is about as nerdy as you can get. On my end, and I don't do it quite as well as Dre and Pac do, but damn, man, like it's an all-time song, and it was an all-time video, and it was what a way to kick off, probably his most, easily one of the most iconic rap albums of all time, and his best known, most well-known record, and a double album to boot.
It's interesting you say the non-cable thing, because I didn't have cable either, so I didn't have a way to find this stuff. And furthermore, I didn't have, this is what, 6th grade for us. Like, we're young, so we don't really have a whole lot of money. So for me, I think if I can recall, the first time I listened to this album was, I think before we jumped on, we were talking about rec camp. It was like ski rec camp. So someone had this album. So I listened to it in like a Discman on the bus over up to Shawnee Peak, I think it was. And just being kind of like, thrown off a little bit, because it's full on gangster rap, right? So it's like you think that it's just all show, but you see it in the news too, and you're like, oh shit, this is legitimate. And as a kid, you're like, really don't know, you can't really tell the difference between art and reality. So that whole phrase, like, art imitates life, life imitates art, this is kind of quintessential to that quote. So I was thrown off a little bit on that, but the jazziness, like the production on this album, captures you even as a kid. If you don't know much about music, either way, you're kind of like in for the beats. So I was hooked. Same thing right when it dropped, or at least pretty close to when it dropped.
Yeah, I think we all, similar story, like we had it in the moment, which is crazy. I was still 10 when this dropped, and I was actually thinking about it. Me Against the World came out like less than a year before this, and I'm trying to think if I had known like Dear Mama, or if California Love was my first exposure. I almost think my first exposure was him in Poetic Justice with Janet when he was acting.
Yep.
But I'm trying to think if I had this or if my older sister had it. But either way, it was in the household, which for a 10-year-old to be listening to this is, in hindsight, it's kind of crazy. Although kids these days with Cardi B, there's probably kids in single digits listening to Cardi B, stuff like that. So it's probably not
That's scary.
as crazy in, with today's context. But back then, looking back, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been listening to it. I think it turned out okay. But this was his last album before he died, last studio album, we should say, or last while he was still living. And you said it was 25th anniversary of his death. What, just this week?
I think this week, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, kind of retroing back on that, I remember watching MTV. You can fact check this. I feel like it was like a Sunday night, a Sunday where he was killed, but I remember it being on MTV News, Kurt Loder, MTV News brief, breaking, and it was just like, damn, you just didn't expect that.
Yep, September 13th, 1996, he was shot in Las Vegas. And we're not going to get too deep into the East-West feud or any of that stuff. We're really just going to kind of talk about some of the music that we love, but obviously you can't. Or the
conspiracies.
Yeah, you can't you can't talk about 2Pac and not mention all that. So you're not going to get the Source Awards here or any of that stuff, but there's plenty of documentaries and stories and videos dedicated to, you know, the East-West feud, the Death Row versus Bad Boy and all that fun stuff. So if you want to go find that, you can. It's out there. But yeah, he died 25 years ago this week, roughly. So when this drops, it'll be about a week ago. And yeah, I remember hearing that on MTV too and just being like, whoa. And he had such a huge year because All Eyez on Me dropped, you know, 9 months, 8 months earlier, 7 months earlier. And he was just kind of poised to take over music, and he had kind of taken it over. Like it was him and Dre and Death Row, and that was just kind of where the world was at as far as music went. You liked them, or you like Jay-Z was kind of starting to make a name, or Biggie and you know, Diddy, and that was it. Those are the names, and you know, I liked it all, but started with Tupac and Dre for sure.
It's crazy to think too that, you know, it was public. We found out through MTV News that he passed away, but like, you know, we were so young to even understand the concept of death in the first place, you know, and gangster rap kind of coinciding, like it's legitimate. It was like, holy shit, he actually got killed. Like it was a drive-by, right? Drive-by shooting.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was just so reminiscent of the scene in that day. And we were like growing up in Southern Maine, like we have no idea what that looks like. So we're kind of living it through vicariously through the album, and to have it kind of play out exactly how the album is. I mean, he's talking about being, you know, watched all the time, right? I think he's quoted as saying the album title comes from being watched by surveillance from the police and by people that are trying to sue him, and people that want to be with him, people that want to kill him, people that want to hang out with him. Like he was just under all this pressure. So in a lot of ways, it actually makes sense that it was his last album. I think maybe that's why it was so many songs. He's just like, I just need to get this all out before I'm not here anymore.
Well, the last song on disc 2 is Heaven Ain't Hard to Find. Yeah. Which is crazy.
I think he knew he was young, right? He was 25 when he died. I think he knew the world that he was in was probably not the safest world, even though it was mostly music, but he came from other stuff. I mean, a lot of those guys did, and they rap. That's what they rap about. They rapped about what their lives were like prior to. Nothing that I can ever relate to and ever try to. I'm not going to, but yeah, that makes sense as to why he would name his album All Eyez on Me, because he probably felt like that from, you know, a young age. And but he's had such a great way with words and could explain a story and, you know, turn a phrase so well, and one of the best to ever do that. And only getting what we got from him was amazing, but so much we could have gotten from him that piece is a bummer.
I think he's the best rapper of all time when it comes to rapping on the downbeat. He does it perfect. There's melody and harmony that I think can only be imitated. It was probably done before that, if, you know, I did a study, but there was almost a genuine tone that I've kind of lived this, and I'm talking about this, and now I'm telling you about it, as opposed to if I listen to, you know, any rapper today, Lil Pump or something, it's just catchphrasey bullshit, and there's no thought that goes into it. It's like, it's almost comparing like a feature film to like a TikTok video. You know what I mean? It's like
totally.
One
That's
is
a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's just a different ball game. And the fact, like, when you kind of level set that he was 25, and that means he wrote like Dear Mama when he was probably 23. It's crazy. The guy was in a league of its own in terms of, I think, storytelling, and it makes me wonder if that didn't happen, how far he would have gone and still had the same and hit the same way. But man, what we got out of him was really special, I think. And I don't know, Nate, if it was because he had to get it all out there because he knew his time was nearing out, or he thought he had enough quality content where this all has to get out. Either way, it's the best rap double album of all time. I mean, Life After Death is, I would say, close-ish second, but man.
And he was in prison too, right? When he was writing this album for, I think, some charges that maybe got dropped, or he was falsely charged or something. So he might have been writing that whole time. So that might have alluded to the amount of material he had to present in the first place. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. But he was just literally on fire. I mean, they bailed him out. Suge Knight and who was it? Jimmy Iovine basically signed him onto a 3-album contract to post bail to make this album. And it actually it served as 2 out of the 3-album contract as a double album. So I never even thought of that before, thinking about that. Like, this serves as a 2 out of 3-album contract based on the fact that it's a double album, which is amazing.
I'm shocked that Jimmy Iovine let that happen.
I know, right?
That he let it that he let it count as two.
Yeah. Like, no,
Yeah.
you put it all out at once. It's one, bro. The nachos stick together. It's one nacho.
Saving Silverman.
Yeah, exactly.
So double CD. I got a question for you guys. When he sells one copy of All Eyez on Me, it's one unit, right? It's not doesn't count as 2 units, does it?
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Then like the economics of it make no sense. I mean, nowadays like Drake's Scorpion that he put out a couple of years ago is a double album. That makes sense because he can flood the gates with streaming. Back then, was there a premium? Like we paid for it was like $20, right?
Yeah, it was 20. It had to be right around 20 or 21, $22.99, something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my mom bought it for me. And again, I'm a 11, 12-year-old. My mom bought me 2Pac's All Eyez on Me. I don't know how I talked her into it, but
Jeez.
she did it. I was the older siblings. I know you both had older siblings, so it was kicking around. It may have been your sisters or your brothers. That was me. I was the guy who was like, yeah, ma, I need Offspring Smash, Green Day Dookie, and 2Pac's All Eyez on Me stat. Like, let's make this happen.
Was it at Record Town at the mall?
But yeah, it must have been. Or Leechmere. Yeah. We've talked about that before, I think. Yeah.
That's hilarious, especially because you were talking about Twan earlier, like, you know, just the lyrical content and whatnot. This is also the same era that the parental advisory sticker was getting dropped on albums, like early 90s or mid 90s,
It was
right?
on this one.
Yeah, it was on this album.
100%.
So,
Yeah, because that started with what, 2 Live Crew, probably 3 or 4 years prior.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, from the label's perspective, double album doesn't make any sense. The fact that it counts for 2 out of the 3 albums of the deal still is not in the favor of the label. I don't know. I'd love to know that story because, like, up to that point, different genre, but Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy, Infinite Sadness was double. Life After Death was after this, was double. But I don't know of many double albums in, you know, quote unquote popular music.
Right. Especially one as successful as this one was.
Totally, and it was.
You bring up Life After Death. I wonder if Biggie thought he had to do it because Pac did it. You know, like because they were obviously in that feud and East versus West stuff, and I wonder if that's why he dropped a double album. It's just like, you know what, he's gonna put out one, I'm gonna put out one too, and it's gonna be just as good. And it is really good. I mean, I think All Eyez on Me is better, but Life After Death is awesome. I mean, there's so many good songs on that record too.
That's a good point. It's also the second album by 2Pac to go to #1 on the Billboard charts. So they obviously knew that he was already top of mind. But still, I mean, like we're talking about, double album regardless. It could have been a single 12-track album and still hit #1 on the Billboard. So 566,000 copies in the first fucking week.
I know, insanity. That's a different world, right? Because that's the only way you could get it. Yeah, the only way you could get it was go to the record store and buy it.
Jeez.
It makes me think that they probably need to rethink the metrics nowadays. Like, I know Drake's album that just dropped, you know, everyone broke the streaming records. And if that album can't come close, you know, I don't know what the sales equivalent is. I know it did go gold, so maybe it was close to that. Question for you guys. Do you remember anything unique about the jewel case for this album?
I remember beating it up. Oh, man.
Did it open the opposite way for the second part?
That's what it was.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. It wasn't the thick one like Life After Death was the thick double, and it like filled up your CD rack. You know what I mean? This was that like fancy. It was almost as slim as a normal case.
Yeah,
it was like a CD gatefold, basically, right?
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
That one's for the nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember that. And I wish I still had it, just because, I mean, I beat it to shit. I was 12. So it like went in backpacks and to my friend's house where we would play baseball in his grandmother's backyard and be blasting No More Pain, which is not really a great song for a 12-year-old to be playing baseball to, but it is what it is. like Twan said, I think we turned out okay.
Right.
But yeah, man, you're right. That's a good tidbit. It was a flip open differently.
That actually just brought up a point also, which is a little sidebar, but how many albums have gone platinum and for this one diamond, just based on the fact that we were kids, we didn't know how to take care of certain things. So like we bought the CD maybe like 3 or 4 times, you know?
That's a
great point, Nate.
Like there's no equivalent of that in the streaming era. It's
exactly.
Like there's not, you know what I mean? Unless you happen to, I think Spotify offers a download so you can listen to it in offline mode, but you're not paying. You just pay the You're not paying for that specifically, so there's no equivalent.
Yeah, you don't lose it or break it in your CD player
Right.
or lose it in your couch cushions or it gets scratched to shit. You need to buy a new one. Like that's a great call. I wonder how many people bought it more than once.
I mean, even in the same household, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brother, sister, and myself all have the same album. That's 3 for one address. That's nuts. But anyways, tangent.
I wonder if were they all signed at the register too?
Yeah, exactly. Different time.
At the CD Authority in Mill Creek.
Oh my God, that place, that fucking
It was
place.
probably $30 there.
Yeah.
Oh, that place is
I
so
bet it
expensive.
was. I bet it was. Yeah. There's a reason that place never stayed open.
So we grew up on this album. We've all listened to it hundreds of times over the, or maybe not that many, but a shitload of times over the years. We all listened to it again, kind of in prep for this episode. So anything that you picked up now that you didn't catch in the moment?
A couple things about the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks on side 1. That is an all-time 6 tracks.
Oh yeah,
It is just banger. And not that I don't like No More Pain, but No More Pain's a little downer comparatively. But yeah, those 6 tracks in a row are so good. And there's so many like different things, like Nate Dogg's on a couple, Snoop Dogg's on a couple, Casey and JoJo, Daz, like there's just people all over it, and it's just so good. But just that first line, I won't deny it, I'm a straight rider. Like, oh, all right, you're in for it right here with that piano. Yeah. You're in for it, man. This is gonna be a fucking banger of an album.
Classic death row sound too, across the whole album. I'll double down on that, Tone, about the first 6 songs. Listening back to this, like I don't remember Trading War Stories. There's a couple songs later in the album that I don't even remember getting to because I probably just replayed through 2 of America's Most Wanted, which is all time for me. And How Do You Want It? I mean, I love Jodeci, so to have Casey and JoJo, I listen to that song every couple months. It just comes up and I want to listen to it. It comes in my head. I want to listen to it, so I throw that on. But for me, Dre's Footprint. I mean, if you listen to Can't See Me, first track on disc 2, that has Dre. It sounds like a beat that would have been on Doggy Style.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Snoop's Doggy Style. Listen back to that with that ear, you'll hear it.
And George Clinton, right?
Yeah, that's right. He produces a few tracks, not a lot. There's a few on there.
A bunch. Yeah, the first track
Dre.
for sure. Yeah, so I guess you're both highlighting the fact that the album flow or the album track listing order is definitely on point, right? It's supposed to somewhat flow into each other, but I mean, either way, like those first 6 songs are just straight up. I mean, they're just straight up bangers. I noticed something funny, which is not even that important, but just very reminiscent of the time, is all like the, weird spellings with the Z's and stuff is very 90s-esque, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that.
You wouldn't do that now. And even like the first song ending with Rida, I was like, oh, is that a Maine reference? No, definitely not. But, I just going through the whole album today, even like the credits, like 94 people for the credits on the personnel making this album. That's a shitload of royalties to be paying out. And that's obviously including 2Pac, but so I guess 93 technically.
It's still wild though. That's a lot of people.
That's a ton of people. I mean, that's like what we talk about now with like a, I don't know, Beyonce album. So
yeah,
precursor to that era.
So
oh yeah,
I thinking about the first 6 tracks here. Just want to throw this out there. All About You, right?
Yeah.
That's a song that was, I think, was a single. There's a video for it. Is Post Malone's Same Bitches not just a knockoff of All About You? Right down to having a couple of features, and it's the same. And I think he would tell you it's an homage to 2Pac's All About You because it's very, very similar in theme. I'm not going to get too deep into lyrics here, but it's very similar in theme, right?
I would agree. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I think, yeah, you're right. Post would be very forthcoming, I think, with his wearing his influences on his sleeve and not being ashamed of it or feeling bad about it. Seeing that he is the biggest industry plant of all time, go back to that episode.
Yeah, the conspiracy episode, man. We just can't get it out of our heads.
I mean, this is also a rewind back to Damien's episode, right? This is a Greta Van Zeppelin type scenario. Is it just blatant imitation?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if the patent has run out on 2Pac yet, though. Like it may have on Greta Van Zeppelin. We're never getting any of those guys on.
Oh, man, I know.
Hey, question for you guys. So the end of that 6-song run, which I agree, No More Pain, you could throw in there. but that would probably be where that run ends. So 2 of America's Most Wanted, was this around the time when Snoop was under investigation for murder?
He might have been. Yeah, murder was the case.
I mean, what a wild song to throw out.
Yep.
I think it was. That matches 96. Because I remember seeing that mugshot, and it's definitely mid-90s. Might be 95. Might be after the fact.
But it would have been written around that time, right?
Oh, true. Yeah. Which is, crazy. That's just how amazing this type of music is. It's just so, autobiography. It's in the time, and they literally just don't give a shit. They're like, yeah, even Tupac coming out of prison.
It's one of my favorite songs.
93 was Snoop Dogg's investigation. And this, I mean, he probably wrote this in 94, 95 for the early 96 release.
And I love what's the song that has, Checkout Time, which is with Corrupt. It's on disc 2. I'm not sure who the female is, if it's Michelle A or someone, but it has a just classic 90s female harmony in the chorus, which, like, if you listen to Dog Pound, other groups adjacent to, other death row groups, very common. That was a staple of death row, having that same, a lot of the same beats. So it's probably Daz Dillinger and Dre and those guys. Man, I actually can't think of a label that you can pin a certain beat style. Like, if I hear a death row beat, I know it's a death row beat.
Totally. Yeah.
And like, you can say that with No Limit in their CD covers,
Yeah. Or Juvenile.
Oh, Cash Money?
Yeah, or Cash Money Records.
Oh, totally. Yeah. With the flames. I feel like it was all
400 degrees. Yeah. Bling bling, right?
And the beats. I think they recycle a lot of their beats in like all their roster for the most part.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But you're right. Death Row had a distinct sound. And I mean, it is obviously on full display on this 27 track, 2 hours and 12 minutes, I think 2 hours and 12 minutes. The second half of the first side, though, there are some really good songs in here. And you're right. Sometimes it's hard to get to them because you're just so blown away by the first half. Like, all right, I want to start those over. Only God Can Judge Me Now, or Only God Can Judge Me with Rappin' Fote is an awesome song. Great song. Great beat. Obviously, 2Pac is in his bag on this one. So is Rappin' Fote, which I think he had one other song. It was another one of those, like, Chop Up the Soul, I'll Be Around was the name of it. And that was like his one big hit.
I got a question for you guys. Similar to what you were saying, Twan. Any fillers on this first half? Any skips?
I think so. Actually, it's a great question because we say this all the time. It's all about context. So when listening to this album back in the day, it was on a Discman.
Yeah.
So you have to skip to the next track. It's not like I'm scrolling on my phone and I'm pushing where I want to go. You have to skip tracks. And I remember I would always skip Trading War Stories to go to California Love to get there. I'm trying to think. Life Goes On, I probably skipped. Hearts of Men probably skipped. Yeah, because I would have skipped, Hearts of Men, Life Goes On, and then I'd probably listen to Only God Can Judge Me, skip Trade More Stories into California Love.
Did you stick around for I Ain't Mad at You, which was like 5 minutes long?
Yes, great song.
Great song.
Classic song, which got some love. I don't know. It was a single.
Yeah.
It was the last single. Yeah. I Ain't Mad at You.
And then What's Your Phone Number, which is the last song on the... We'd listen to it if it was... We were away from the CD player, but typically we'd pop in side 2 or restart side 1 at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It was a manual swap out of the disc. It wasn't...
Yeah.
I mean, people that listen to this album nowadays that got into it in the moment, they don't even know where the break is between discs.
Right.
Yeah, I had to ask the skip question just because in the day, like you were saying, you have the Discman, you're actually in control of skipping the song. It's not like today where you're scrolling or whatever, but in hindsight, like now, in our age now, listening to the album, it is a front to back album, really. But at the time, I think we were so young, we just didn't really fully understand the depth of the album. But now you're like, oh man, this is a full on, I almost want to say it's like a concept album in a lot of ways. I read somewhere that someone compared, I think from Rolling Stone, compared it like to the hip hop version of The Dark Side of the Moon. I thought that was kind of cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as many chances on this one.
Yeah.
I think it's just straight up, heat with people with features. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, George Clinton, Snoop, Corrupt, Big Psych, Casey and JoJo, Nate Dogg. Like, it just doesn't end. There's just people on it left and right.
Method Man,
Dre.
Redman.
Yeah, Method Man. Yeah, exactly.
So 2 comments about features. One is on Thug Passion, it features Jewel, but not the Jewel everyone knows.
No.
It's a Jewel that was signed to Death Row, which is interesting. But the other thing about features is, like, in the moment, I mean, obviously we knew Snoop, we knew Nate Dogg, Daz Dillinger, Corrupt from Dog Pound. We knew all them. But some of the others you didn't know. And unless you had the booklet with you, you would have no idea. Like, I don't know who Dramacidal is and SIBO. Like, that's the first time I've ever seen these names. Where nowadays, it's front and center on the streaming platforms for the most part.
Yeah.
I would say the second half has a couple more skips, but it's still really good. There are 2 all-time 2Pac songs on the second half. Picture Me Rolling and All Eyez on Me. Like,
Oh, yeah.
they're just untouchable rap songs, period. But they're obviously both 2Pac songs and on the same, within 4 tracks of each other.
Yeah, the title track is kind of like watching a movie and they finally say the name of the movie in the movie, right? You're like, oh, I've been waiting for this moment.
Yep. And it comes so late, but you're like, you said it. There it is.
So late. Yeah, literally or close to the end. Yeah. Track 10. Yeah.
It is a time and the place album when you really think about it, because it didn't make economic sense to put out a double album, 1. 2, look at the length of the tracks. There's nothing under 4 minutes for the most part, and they're mostly 5 minutes, which in the streaming era, to get something to qualify as a stream, it has to be 2 minutes. And you see a lot, I mean, Post Malone's guilty of this, straddling that 2-minute line to qualify. This was art. Like, this was, I need 6 minutes to tell my story. You're either here for it or you're not.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think we'll get that again. I mean, I think you saw it with Jay-Z's 444. Like, that's a concept album. There's no singles, etc. You know, different era, but you can see the lineage, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen from a pop act ever again. And I mean, he's a rap act, but he's a pop act at the time too, right?
Yep.
He was part of the popular culture at large. And you're just never going to see that again because of the way streaming is set up, because of the way the money shakes out. You don't have to go to the store to pick up Post Malone's new record. You don't have to go to the store to get Certified Lover Boy, right? It's just on your phone at midnight when it drops, and you can listen to it however you feel like listening to it. And they want you to get, the songs will be 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, because they want you to rack up those streams. So that's just, that makes me sad a little bit, honestly. But I mean, there's still plenty of bands and artists not doing that. So, we gravitate towards those typically, I would say. But there's some good stuff in there that can go for 2.5, 3 minutes too. So it's tough when that's the reason. And that makes me a little sad.
I got another thing on the features. I want to kind of go back to that, Twan. What do you think? How do you think this went down with the features? Do you think he was writing these songs in prison and then the demos would go out to just a roster of people that were willing to work with him?
I mean, I think there's probably a subset of these artists that are on Death Row.
Yeah.
The Death Row records. I think there's, I mean, Casey and JoJo weren't on Death Row, but they obviously...
George Clinton, but there are plenty that were, too.
Plenty that were. Yeah, I mean, I think and then probably some of them are from like Oakland, and I was just looking up one of them that was from Richie Rich. He's from Oakland, so he probably knew him, just trying to put him on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Rappin' Fote was from there too.
Yeah, so just trying to bring him along with him. And I mean, between the features, between co-writing credits and various producers, I mean, this was an all-in effort. Yeah. And the final product it's classic. It's untouchable.
Crazy. It's 25 years old, man. That blows me away.
So what's up with California Love? Obviously, the MTV video was like a mini feature film. The way it introed into it, the whole Mad Max thing. But that version isn't the version that's on the record, right?
No, and that always drove me nuts. Because like that, I like the version on the record, but the beat's different, and it's almost a little more subdued compared to the party version from the music video. And I mean, they're both great. The song is amazing. You could listen to it 7 different ways, and you're gonna love it all 7 ways. But it was weird for that to be different. And I remember listening to it, and I'm like, why is this not the version I'm used to hearing, over the air on MTV or whatever? But and I can't. I mean, even on streaming, just tonight listening to it, I was like, wow, that's still the other version. Where's the?
It's still the other version.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know what that's about. If there's a reason, if there's a sample or something, who knows?
So it looks like in the UK edition of the album, there was a bonus track which had the short radio edit, which is I like that version better. I'm with you.
Yeah, that is strange though, because you get looped in the bait and switch on the initial Mad Max version, and then it's non-existent. It's almost like discovering a local band, and then they go to a major, and it's a completely different, reworked version of that single that you're so used to.
Yeah.
Well, it's more subdued on the record.
It's
not as in your
back.
face.
Yeah.
It's not as in your face. And when I was listening back, kind of prepping for this, I was like, wait, what? I don't remember this, because it sounds like near the end where there's that kind of breakdown in the radio edit version, it kind of starts like that in the CD version, which is interesting.
It's something to be said for the way they were able to visually put that all together. This time frame was great for music videos, period. Yeah. It was a lot of that was how you told your story as far as what the song was supposed to be about, or, just threw a visual together that like fit whatever aesthetic you were going for. And obviously this song had an amazing debut. I got a ton of buzz, a ton of people talking about the record, all that stuff. And I would say hip hop and R&B did the best with that at this time. There were some outliers, obviously, but I just remember gravitating towards that music at that age because the videos are cool. Like the songs are good and the videos are cool.
Hype Williams, baby. He did this one.
Yep.
And it was, I didn't look up anything about this, but I would assume it was a massive budget, especially for the time up to that point in time.
I'm sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Roger Troutman, I don't even know who that is. I think he's a kind of a classic R&B singer. He's featured on this with Dre, and I don't even know what part he does.
He was the guy with the golden throat. He had the like vocoder thing over his. That's Roger Troutman.
Oh, right on.
Shake it, baby. That's him.
Yeah. Okay. That was auto-tune before auto-tune.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. 25 years for me, it holds up, and then some. I can't put any modern rapper besides, your Jay-Z's and your Nas, who are still kicking around in some capacity, but anyone new that could put an album like this together with the storytelling, the lyricism, technical ability and acumen, the production, and 2Pac was on the production side too. If you look at the credits, I just don't think anyone can touch this, and I don't think many have. I mean, certainly Biggie, Life After Death is fantastic. Ready to Die, which I think was before this. Special record, man. I wish we got more out of him in the moment. I mean, there was the albums that came out after he died, which I'm sure there's a lot of studio tricks, and they piecemealed stuff together. I didn't check out a lot of that. This is kind of where I cut my teeth in.
Yep.
Me Against the World too.
Yeah, there's an honesty at 25. I mean, imagine writing this kind of music at 25 and it's just so honest. Here's a question. What if he was still around? Would it be one of those situations where it's like, man, it's better that if he was around to hang it up early, or would he still be making just bona fide classics to this day? It's hard to say, right?
I mean, Dre obviously had some medical issues earlier this year, but before that was not doing a ton.
Yeah.
As far he's doing some stuff here and there, but yeah, no, I think he'd be a little more in the activist realm, honestly, with the way some of his other, writing and some of his other songs went. I could totally see him living in that world, especially now, a little older, especially with the world that we live in today. I could see him, maybe be doing a feature on a Run the Jewels album, or imagine that, or something with Zach De La Rocha, not to bring it back to Rage like we always do, but that's
Drake.
Right. That's totally, I thought that it goes through my head anyway.
That's a good point. His mom was a Black Panther, so that kind of aligns pretty accurately. I think he might actually be one of those people or, artists that does kind of go off the map. He's not dead. He's like Andre from Outkast. You just never hear from the guy. So that or special guest. Yeah. What do you think, Dwan?
I think that a lot of the themes in lyrics of what we got out of him up to that point, were products of someone. Well, All Eyes on Me, that's the product of kind of being in the spotlight, but this launched him into another stratosphere. So I think after, it would have been interesting to see what he would have rapped about. I think there's just a rawness up to this point that I don't think you can mimic once you've gotten huge. I think
Agreed.
a lot of the early stuff was just a product of his environment, his family, his upbringing. I'm trying to compare him. I don't see him going the Nas route. Remember Nas he linked up with P. Diddy,
Yeah, Hate Me Now. Yep.
Yeah, Hate Me Now. I don't see that realm. I also don't see the disappearing realm like Dre.
Mm-hmm.
Dre, leaned into the production in that lane. I don't know. And then there's the Eminem, who I think has stuck around. That some of his stuff hits now, some of it doesn't. A lot of people think he's washed. Does it take away from his legacy? Some people think it does. I mean, it's like, I don't know. In a crazy way, music-wise, it may have worked out in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to disagree with that. I would rather the opposite for him, for Biggie, for anybody that obviously did time get cut short for, violence or something of that terrible nature. But man, what he put out was so damn good in that short time frame that I'm not sure you could script it any better if you wanted to musically.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that his style has not been mimicked a lot, and I think that is a reason why. I think it takes skill, and it takes like technical ability that's very difficult, and his is so unique that people would get pegged as a Pac ripoff.
Yeah,
I think that's a good assessment, because he was basically in survival mode, so it's just like writing from the heart. I think we've talked about that throughout this episode. Is he's like in jail writing this album, coming out literally knowing, I'm assuming under some kind of super paranoia that he's going to live a short life regardless. So
nah, he was out on bail, fresh out of jail, California dreaming, bro.
Yeah.
As soon as a step on the scene, I'm hearing.
Yep.
But the Eminem comparison, I was going to bring that up too, because Eminem, one of the best rappers of all time as well. But I mean, there's some stuff out there that does, I think, take away from his legacy. So I would hate to see that happen to Tupac. But the fact that he's still going is great too. You get to see him live. He's not just someone that is amazing that you just don't hear about and is locked in his mansion. So yeah, quintessential Tupac, 90s. This is like the definition of 90s OG, right?
Yeah. Yep. It certainly is, in our realm anyway, in the Podioslave realm for sure.
What a way, I mean, I guess just to kind of bring it full circle, like what a way to come up for us. I mean, he could have been in any era. We got him right on the cusp, right on the fringe of us coming into music. I'd much rather have grown up on Tupac than Jack Harlow. You know what I mean?
Sorry, Jack, but yeah, I agree with you. A little more substance to
exactly
the world that I think we grew up in, and to something compared to some of the stuff that we see nowadays. And not to diss anybody in particular right this second. That was just you throwing out a
First
name
I thought of.
Yeah,
Modern.
and he can rhyme. I mean, it is what it is, but it's a different world. Like they're not.
It's substance.
It's a
you nailed it.
completely different world. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's not coming on the pod. Don't worry.
Oh, I'm not worried about it.
Or maybe
sadly, neither is like Dre or Pac or Eminem. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's a good spot to stop. We totally ride for this record and Tupac's catalog on the whole. It's something that we still revisit here and there, and this is a fun little exercise to revisit something that we haven't in years, and we talk a little hip hop. We haven't done that enough, I don't think. We all grew up with it. We all love a lot of it, and we want to give you a little of that flavor now too. So
yeah, well said. And I think it's a cool highlight that we were lucky to come up with the music goats, the rap Beethovens of the world. Like that was our era. So to be able to talk about it then and now in retrospect and just nerd out on it is really special. So that was cool. I can't wait to do it again. But Tupac, I guess we could say he's the GOAT, right? Greatest of all time.
I would say probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with it because it's like, who's my favorite? Who's objectively the best?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
Some days it's Pac, some days it's Biggie, some days it's Jay, some days it's Eminem. No, I hear you.
Yeah, I've always said Nas is my favorite, and that's just I spent so much time with It Was Written growing up, and Illmatic. Shortly after that, I got into him in reverse. But this one is I think after listening today to this again, I'm like, damn, he could be the GOAT. There's just flows and harmony and melody that Biggie could do, but I don't think many other people could do it, and it's just special. And if you've never listened to this album, go back and listen to it. You'll need a couple hours. If you remember having this growing up, still listen to it. It still holds up. Listen to it with 2021 ears, and you'll be as impressed. Yeah, I agree. It holds up. It has some, retro sounds from the 90s, but they hold up because it's quintessential, and it's I don't know, it's a time, it's a snapshot of that time, which is cool. Totally agree. Yep. All right, that's a good spot to wrap. We will see Podheads. I'll see all you guys next week. Nate, you said you excited to do this again. We'll do it again next week, man. Yeah, let's do it again next week. I'll be here. See ya. Peace out. Later, Podheads. Cheers.